Hi everyone, thank you for having me today at Construction 4.0. I'm really excited to be here, and today I'm going to be talking about digital twins and the foundations of the metaverse. Really powerful title, but I want to go a little bit into what some of these terms mean. But before we get started, just a quick introduction to myself and obviously the company which I'm coming from, which is Epic Games. So my name is David Weir McCall. I work with the AEC Enterprise at Epic Games. So what that basically means is we have this amazing tool called the Unreal Engine, which is this game engine platform that we use for all our game side, the Fortnite, Gears of War, Infinity Blade. But that same tool that is used to create Fortnite and all these other games, we license that out to other game developers. And that little box in the top right-hand corner, that's where I sit, and specifically within the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. And it's how people are using these game engine tools in these non-games fields, in automotive and manufacturing and training and simulation. And today we're going to be going over and showing a little bit more about how Unreal Engine and these game engines are being used within the AEC space. So it's a little bit away from maybe the game space, a little bit more into kind of the building side of things. So there won't be any Star Wars Mandalorian, but we'll still talk you through some great examples. So before we talk about the metaverse and before we talk about digital twins, just for those of you who are maybe a little bit unaware of who we are and what we do, I do just want to give a little bit of a background to give you more of an idea about the tools that we have before jumping into it. And so Unreal Engine is just one of the tools that we have. The other one we have is a tool called Twinmotion. And these software tools are their primary use is to create experiences, is to create visuals visuals for this complex backend, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with working with. And Twinmotion is the simple version. It's very clean UI. It's very the way we actually come to describe it is talking about architectural visualizations in a few clicks. So it's a tool that links to your proprietary design tools, Revits, Rhinos, or Tesla structures, or a bunch of these other tools. And it's there for you to create this kind of visual world, this client end experience with smart assets, with trees that grow, cars that move around, a 3D real-time environment for you to create and to showcase or to communicate design ideas or information to your end users. And there's a whole host of stuff in there which are really dedicated towards the AEC, including hundreds and thousands of assets, absolutely free, including a number of construction ones. There's a great phasing tool to kind of show the build and construction of projects over time. And this tool is really sort of straightforward. It's very simple, whereas the Unreal Engine, we generally describe as being this advanced 3D real-time creation platform. Now, we're going to get into this one a little bit more, because what that basically means is you can take your models and you can create these custom bespoke experiences within them. Now, whether that's I want to create a city or a world, or I want to create an environment where I welcome in people from across the globe into the same place, this is what we're going to be talking about today within the idea of a larger metaverse. And I'm not going to go into this side of it too much. I'm going to keep it very high level, but these are the four things which we believe are really crucial to that metaverse and really crucial into the development of our tools, from data aggregation, because we want to make sure that no matter what data you're using, it comes into the engine okay, all the way down to collaboration to make sure that it's not just a single user experience, it's a many user experience. And there's a couple of great organizations and companies out there who are utilizing our tools within the construction space currently. Gilbane Construction use Unreal Engine to create a simple end user facing phasing tool to allow them to create their own custom maps, bring in their own models, and showcase design elements within this 3D world in a step-by-step process so people within the field or even the end users or stakeholders will be able to understand it more as well. And the Unreal Engine on that data side, working with LiDAR scan technology, you can actually come in and create these great instructional videos on how you build these processes out. All the way through to One Reality, you actually use it as a training tool. So they've created this custom unique experience which allows users to experience what it's like to work in these spaces prior to getting there, to train them up on the dangers of a construction site, but also how to use the equipment, both on a desktop version and a virtual reality headset, which I generally love the kind of VR side of using a real buzzsaw at the same time as using a virtual one. Lots of fun in that one. So now that we have a better picture of how the engine works, I want to talk about this idea of a metaverse. Now, it's a macro term that you've probably heard a couple of times. Our CEO describes it as being the concept of an equivalent digital reality that people exist in, simultaneously a real one. Now, those of you who are familiar with digital twins, you might start to think, well, that sounds awfully similar to a digital twin. And that's really where I want to get to today. And so just before we jump into the digital twin side of it, we define this metaverse by being this kind of 3D social environment. We want to welcome in people from across the world. We wanted to make it collaborative and open and free and available. And if you're still struggling to imagine what this metaverse could look like or how it might work, one of the best case examples that we're doing sort of early tests on and early sort of beta tools on is Fortnite. And a great sort of test pilot we did last year was we actually hosted a Travis Scott concert. Now, if you have kids or you're relatively trendy, you might know who Travis Scott is. But we hosted this live concert in Fortnite to kind of allow people from around the world to come and watch this performance. And the platform was able to handle 27 million people watching this concert at the same time. But more importantly, what we discovered by having this virtual event is the impact it had to the real world. Travis Scott was shot to #1 across Apple Music, Spotify, Twitter. It was the largest streaming debut ever, 44 million streams in 1 week. So this simple interaction in this digital world actually had impacts everywhere else. And this is where we see the importance of the metaverse, is that connection from the digital world to the physical world. So we're seeing very early tools. The Unreal Engine is being used as the kind of tool to create the metaverse and to create these experiences. But before we get there, before we get to the metaverse, we really want to look at creating this really strong, robust connection from digital to physical. And so there's this very old sort of design principle from architecture called form follows function. And that's this idea that the function of it and how it processes and works needs to be really cemented in place before we look at the form of it. And this is where the digital twin side of things come in, is that we really want to create that nice sort of that sort of structured back end before we look at creating this sort of very beautiful UI front end. And in the digital twin conversation, which is the 3D representation of the physical asset, but with a live continuous data flow, the visual side and the form side of this is really the tip of the iceberg. We often hear it being called gamification, but we really need this sort of back-end IoT infrastructure in place before we look at creating these experiences. Now, what I want to share with you today is how some of these people have taken these very complex back-end IoT data sets and translated them visually using the Unreal Engine to create that gamification layer to data. Help people translate data in context to help turn it into information. And this is where Unreal Engine plays a part in the digital twin, is to translate that data that we have from construction sites, from locations in the 3D world for the end users. And that really works by doing a couple of things. We take the 3D geometry, we take the IoT data, and we bring this together and we aggregate this data into one place and we create this user interface. So I want to share with you a couple of examples of people who have taken this kind of structure of 3D geometry, IoT data, and created a front-end UI, starting with 51 World. So 51 World are the pioneers in digital twins and real-time render tools, where they've done exactly just as we've described. They have this data from one of their sites. Let's take a factory as an initial example. And they've got the 3D model from it. And they bring these two together and they've created this UI front end so that an end user can go around the site, find out how assets are performing. They can find out how spaces are being used to navigate through, where people are walking, where they're going, how spaces are operating at any one time. So we are the visual front layer and also the ability to visually control the scene. So I can show things like heat maps and I can custom the visuals of the scene to best get an information or an idea across. Like, as an example, if I wanted to close off the escalators, how would that affect public or pedestrian flow through a space? Another good example of a digital twin is the work that's been done with Cognite. Now, Cognite are a data software platform for the energy sector. They're in construction as well, where they have created this tool that allows you to dissect through the 3D geometry, the IoT data, and created this great UI front layer. So you can click on assets and not only see the live data from it in the 3D model, but drawings allow you an interactive way that you can cut through it and see your modeling your data in more context. So we're seeing all these different ways that you can aggregate data into the one source and visually translate it. What I also love about what people are using these tools for is that we're not stopping at just buildings. We're not just stopping at factories. Is that we're now starting to see this kind of data aggregation and sources go all the way through to the kind of city size and city scale developments, where we're now starting to see digital twins in Unreal Engine of entire cities, like the building Wellington digital twin by Build Media. And what they've done is they've collaborated BIM data, GIS data, photogrammetry scans, and created a user-facing digital twin. So a portal which citizens of the city can get onto to see future developments around the city. That they can see live data coming from the city, like transportation routes, where buses are currently in the city. You can also use this to kind of see how, as a whole, holistic approach, how the city's working, where flights are coming in and out of, all the way down to the micro level of what parking spaces are free throughout the city. And all of these different tools, again, they look at bringing in the 3D geometry and they look at bringing in the IoT data into the centralized location so you can view it and have this gamification layer. And the last one I'll share is where we're going with this. And then the roadmap and the foundation of the metaverse is, let's not just look at a city, let's look at an entire world database. So you might be familiar with the ArcGIS database from Esri. There's another one, CCM. Both have plugins to the engine that allow you to have access at your fingertips, a global mapping system, a global GIS tool that you can layer in data and you can layer in information so that this information can be streamed to iPads to desktops, so you can get an entire world at your fingertips. And this is really where we're going with this idea of a metaverse, about this idea of having not just sort of a 3D model in a space, but an entire world in a database. And like Fortnite, bringing in people across the world into that same space. And not just that, but then also linking in live IoT data. And so we're at a stage now, and we're at this really unique opportunity where we're in the process of creating that function, where the form of the metaverse will follow what we do in the construction industry, because digital twins and that connection to the real world is really the foundations of where this future digital ecosystem will exist. And all of these things like data aggregation and collaboration, connected ecosystem are all just part of that. And if you want to see a little bit of a snapshot into what's coming with the metaverse, we're making huge steps forward, and we recently acquired Capturing Reality so we can better capture the world around us. It's a great software tool so you can bring these super hyper realistic 3D models into the engine of spaces all the way through to actually visually representing yourself is a 3D avatar in these spaces. So the future metaverse is this great sort of idea, and we're slowly piecing it together. And with the release of Unreal Engine 5 coming, I think, at the end of the year or start of 2022, we're really looking at bridging the gap between the digital reality and the physical one and having that connection as streamlined as possible. So big thinking, big ideas on what's coming, some great sort of stuff that we're seeing at the moment. But I think there's a huge part for the AEC industry to play, and especially the kind of ConTech community to help chip into this idea of a future metaverse. Who better to design the digital metaverse and the digital reality than those who are currently building, designing, and constructing the real one?